Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thanks so much for stopping by. Now today for my Countdown to Christmas series, I'm going to be using some pattern papers from this Carousel Christmas collection. It's a 6x6 paper pad, and I loved the soft blues and the pinks and the soft greens in this paper pad. So I wanted to kind of give myself a challenge. When I purchased the paper pad, I'll leave a link below to where you can find it. I fell in love with the soft colors, and then of course the cookies, anything sweet in a paper pad I fell in love with. But I wanted to do something different. So along with that, I picked up this 12 by 12 pattern paper. Now these are all images that you can cut out, and it was only like 99 cents. So I thought it'd be fun to see if I can create 10 cards using all the elements in this 12 by 12 pattern paper here. Now there's two of them that won't fit on my card base, but would be great for scrapbooking. So I won't use the deer or the little horse. But the rest of them, I thought it'd be fun to challenge myself and see if I can make 10 cards using all these elements. So I cut out all of the elements, and then just to give them a finished look, I'm going in with my vintage photo distress ink, and I'm just going around all the edges. I had did that already to all of the elements that I had cut out, but it just, I think, gives it a real finished look. So there's my elements we're going to use to create 10 cards. So we're going to jump in, start off with card number 1. Now I'm using a very vanilla card base here, and I cut out a panel that was just slightly smaller than a standard A2 size card base. And then I'm going to use this beautiful pale green Christmas tree pattern paper. This panel is slightly smaller than the panel that I had cut out, and so that's going to be my background. Now I have this Recollections, it's like a ribbon almost, but it has a sticky back. I've had it forever and ever and ever, and so I thought I would use it. I love the color just coordinated with the cardstock perfectly. So I'm just adding a strip of this to my pattern paper there. Now I know the chances of you having this like ribbon is very slim, but any ribbon you have in your stash would work just great with this. So for card number 1, I grabbed the orange and I tucked it underneath that ribbon there. I'm going to use my tape runner to secure it down a little bit better. And then I'm going to use the candy cane. I already popped it up with some dimensional adhesive, and I'm going to place that on my panel there. And then I'm going to use the green bow, but I thought 2 of the littler bells that I had cut out would go perfect. Now to give these bells accents, I did add some gold. This is gold twine. I'm going to add it to the top there and kind of thread it through on both of them there. And I did tie little knots just to give it a little finished look. I'm going to pop both of my little bells up with some dimensional adhesive, remove the backing, and then just kind of arrange them on my little scene here. And then using a glue dot, I'm going to secure that gold twine down to that panel. What I did end up doing is taking those twine and tying bows with them, because I wanted the loopy ends to stick out behind this green bow that I had cut out. And that's my little scene. Now we need a sentiment, so there was actually 4 sentiments in that 12 by 12 pattern paper. This one says fa la 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 la, and so I added that using some dimensional adhesive. And I'm just going to pop this panel up with some foam tape, and then I'm going to place it on the vanilla panel and then place that on my card base. Now to give this card a little bit of shimmer, I'm going in with some honey gold Nouveau crystal drops, and that's it for card number 1. Now we're going to move on to card number 2. I'm going to cut out a strip of this stripe paper here, and I'm going to use the blue polka dotted pattern paper. I'm just going to add some glue to the back here and then stick that on the stripe paper. And then using a stitched rectangle die, I'm going to cut out a panel. I'm going to show you the size of this panel against my card base so you can kind of tell what kind of sizing it is. But I am going to add some ribbon. I'm going to tie a bow to the left there just to cover the seam up. Now, I guess I didn't show you the size. For this one is I would say half an inch smaller than my card base. But I just arranged my cookies on there and popped them up with some dimensional adhesive. There are 3 cookies and I thought I'd use them all for this card. And then for the sentiment, I added Happy Holidays, which was on that 12 by 12 pattern paper. I just secured that to another vanilla card base. And then for little bells and whistles, I add some blue gems to the blue cookie. And then these ones are Rose Water Nouveau Jewel Drops. They dry translucent, which is really nice, or transparent, sorry. And then I'm taking my Simply White Nouveau Crystal Drops and going around this cookie here, just to give them all a little bit of dimension. And for a little shimmer and shine, I'm taking these are some more White Blizzard Nouveau Glitter Drops and adding a little bit of glitter here and there. But that's it for card number 2. Love those cookies. Now for card number 3, I wanted to scallop the edge, and this is actually a cupcake die. It's super large, and it's a cupcake wrapper die, but I thought it'd be fun to make a card with that. I like the large scallop on it, and I like the swoop that it gives. So if you have a cupcake wrapper die, break it out for your cards because it works just fine. Now I want stitched edging along this panel, so I just used my rectangle die for that. And then I cut out a piece of this pattern paper with the holly berries on it. Once I have that done, I'm just kind of trying to figure out my placement here. I thought it would be neat to add a little bit of this green pattern paper on the edge of this little swoop here. So I'm just going to hand cut it out, and then using my tape runner, I'm just going to adhere it to that vanilla card panel there. I'm going to erase my pencil marks. Place that on there, and then for me that just gave it a little bit of color, kind of made it stand out a little bit. I'm just going to adhere the scallop edge underneath it. Lovely. Okay, once we have that done, we're going to add our embellishment. For this card, I'm going to use this beautiful poinsettia. Now when I cut this out, I cut out the leaves almost down to the center, like every other leaf. That way for me it gave it a little bit of dimension. And then when I popped it up, I only added dimensional adhesive like to every other leaf. That way some are raised and then some are flush on my panel there. And I just love the way that looks. Now we need a sentiment. I wanted to use my Joy die here. This one is from a Hero Art Stamp and Cut set. I'm going to actually cut out 3. I'm going to layer all 3 together, but the top one I want to be gold. So I'm going in just with my Versamark ink and covering that entire word Joy. And then I'm going to add some gold embossing powder and go ahead and heat set that. Once I have that done, there's my Joy. Now believe it or not, I did do the little dot too, which was kind of a little bit of a booger. My family always makes fun when I say booger, but it was a little bit tedious because it was so itty bitty, but I did emboss that. So now here's where I go in and layer all 3 of these together. I like doing this because it adds stability to my sentiment. Lovely. And then I layered all 3 of my little dots for the J too, and I just adhered that to my panel there. Now once I have that done, I decided to add, instead of just leaving the sentiment as Joy, I wanted to put Sending Joy. So I'm just stamping it with Versamark ink, and I'm going to go in with my gold embossing powder and then heat set that. So that's finishes my sentiment. Now, I don't know why the screen went narrow. I just don't know why it did that. But my card is really not that narrow. Sorry about that. But I am going to pop this panel up with some foam tape and then place that on my card base. Although that narrow kind of looks really pretty. I like that too. But that's card number 3. Oh, for the center, this is what I like to do with my poinsettias during the holidays. I'm taking my multimedia mat and going over the center of my poinsettia. And then I have these gold seed beads. Now, these seed beads I decided to store, and these are actually little syrup bottles from Cracker Barrel, but I recycled them, and I hold my seed beads in there because I like the color of it and I think it looks really pretty. But I just added them to my multimedia mat in the center there, added a little shimmer and shine with my Wink of Stella, and that was it for that card. Okay, now we're back to normal size. I cut out this panel of polka dot papers, and then next I'm going to use this scalloped edge rectangle die here. I'm going to cut out a panel there. Now for this card I did use a white card base, so instead of the very vanilla, it's white. Now I'm taking a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm going to go in with 3 of my Distress Oxide inks. This one is Candied Apple, and then I'm going to go in with Worn Lipstick. And I wanted like an ombre effect, so I'm just kind of trailing down, and then just to make it the same color, I wanted to add a little bit of the vintage photo. Now in my stash I have this Celebrate die. I love this. It's an MFT die. I really like the font on this, and I'm just going to cut out the word Celebrate. And then 2 other Celebrates using white cardstock. So I'm going to do the same thing I did in the previous card. I'm going to layer them together, but I love that effect. Now I'm going to take my quickie glue pen here, and I'm just going to sandwich them all together, and then there's our sentiment, well, at least part of it. And I love that look. Okay, now this, of all the cards, this one took me the longest, but I thought it was more detailed and was fun. In the 12 by 12 pattern paper there are these little mittens, so I cut them out, and then this is a snow pen. You add it to any element that you want, and then you heat set it, and it puffies up nice and fluffy. It is so neat, and it's a staple of mine for Christmas cards. I'm just heat setting that, and I'm going to show you how dimensional this looks. I love that effect, but it really does add just adds a little extra to your card. Now I'm taking a dimensional adhesive dot, and I'm adding some this is almost like embroidery floss. I just doubled it up, and I'm attaching it to the ends of those mittens there, and I'm leaving them looped together. I thought that would be fun. I'm going to trim off the ends there. Lovely. So there's our little mittens. Now, just to give the little mittens a little extra, I'm cutting another piece of that embroidery floss, and then I have these itty bitty silver bells, jingle bells. They're so cute and so dainty, and I thought they would be cute accents on my glove. So I'm going to thread 2 through my embroidery floss, and then I'm going to tie a bow. Love that. And then just taking a glue dot, I am going to secure them to my mitten over in the corner there, and I did that to both sides there. And I love those little mittens. I think they turned out so sweet. Okay. Gonna do the next one. Love that. Oh, and for close-up pictures, if you want to visit my blog, you'll be able to see the detail in them. And then also at the end of the video too, I showed close-ups, so you could really see what they look like. Now I did stamp a sentiment just using my VersaFine ink that says, wishing you a cozy holiday. Just a sentiment for my stash. And then I added my polka dotted panel, and then now I'm going to go in and add my gloves towards the top, because we're going to put that Celebrate right underneath them. I'm kind of just twisting that embroidery floss behind that panel, and then I popped it up with some foam tape, and I'm going to place it right in the center of this card base. So cute. Love those. And then I did add my celebrate, and then also the rest of my sentiment. For finishing touches, I did go in with some silver gems, and I put them in the center of the flowers on the gloves, and then a few right below the sentiment area. And that's it for that card. Okay, now for my next card. I think little details in cards make so much of a difference. So I added some eyelets to the bells, and then using some gold twine, I'm going to thread my bells so they all have strings. Now I wanted to gather all of these three up, so I did tie a knot at the very top of those. Now I'm going to go in with this light green pattern paper, but I want it to be a little bit more two-toned in the green area, so I'm adding some peeled paint, Distress Oxide ink. And then for my stash, I have this leaf die. I cut out 2 little leaf flourishes here. Now once we have that done, I'm taking this beautiful pattern paper, and then using an oval die, I'm just going to cut out a panel, and then also a vanilla oval to go in the center of that. Now just to make the card kind of flow better together, I'm going to go on the edges of this pattern paper with some Distress ink. This is Vintage Photo again. And you can see the way it looks with the Vintage Photo versus the way it looks without it. It really makes it stand out. And then I did go over the edges of a few of those leaves there. I'm going to show you up close how pretty they look. Okay, once we have that done, we're ready to attach our bells. I'm going to just cluster 3 of them together, and then take those gold threads and then knot it at the very top. I did pop them all up with dimensional adhesive. And then I'm taking a large glue dot and placing it right over the center knot that I had created. And then after I do that, I'm going to add my leaves. I'm going to trim them down just a little bit. And then there's a red bow that I had cut out. I'm going to trim that off a little bit. And then I'm going to place that right in the center, there where those glue dots were. And then I'm going to pop up that panel with some foam tape, and then place it on the pattern paper oval. And then I did pop the pattern paper panel up with some foam tape as well. I just added that to my vanilla card base, and then a little bit of shimmer. I added some Wink of Stella. There's a little sentiment that says joy, and I thought we need a sentiment on here, so that worked out perfect. I just placed that to the right there. And then that's it for that card. Okay, now we're going to move on to our next card. Now for our next card, love that shimmer. I think it looks so pretty. There's 3 Santas. There's 2 of them that are facing the same way, and then 1 of them that isn't. So I thought it would be fun to make a layered, almost like a decoupage Santa. So I cut out the face of the Santa with the Santa that was facing the opposite way. And then I'm cutting out the top part of the Santa that matches the 3rd Santa. And I'm just going to do some layering. I layered just the Santa's head on top of the full Santa, and then the Santa's face, I'm going to place that on top. So he's 3 layers. And I think that's a great way to add dimension to a card. I'm going to take the little pom-pom on Santa's hat and add that too. And I did go in around all the elements again with some Vintage Photo, just so it flows right. Now I'm going to take some pattern paper here. I'm going to cut out this. I'm not going to add a sentiment, so I thought that this pattern paper with all the sentiments would work perfect. And then I'm going to take a piece of this polka dotted paper that was left over from the previous card, and then this green pattern paper that we used for those leaf flourishes in the previous card. So I have 3 different size strips here. I'm going to use my tape runner and adhere the one with all the sentiments to my card base. Now for this card too, I'm going to be using a very vanilla card base. I just trimmed it down. All the card bases are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to place that. This is to the right of the card there. I'm just upside down. I'll trim off the excess. And then I'm going to fishtail the ends of both the smaller pattern papers here. I'm just going to fishtail the end and then trim it down just a little bit. I'm going to adhere the polka dot to the green, and then I'm going to pop that entire panel up with some foam tape. Place that on my card base here. Then I'm going to go ahead and add my Santa. And then just to give it a little extra, I have some, it's a vanilla colored white or jute cord. I added a bow to the top part of those fishtail banners. And then for finishing touches, I'm going to go in with some, let's see, what color is this? This is Sea Breeze Jewel Drops. And that's it. Now we're going to move on to card number 7. Card number 7, I kind of lost a little bit of footage, but I think you'll get the gist of how I made it. Now I'm going to use a vanilla card base for this, and I cut out 2 pieces of the pattern paper. Now I'm going to use a piece of vellum here, and I'm going to stamp the word Christmas from a stamp set from my stash. I'm using my anti-static powder tool because I'm going to emboss it with some gold embossing powder. The gold embossing powder is Nuvo's classic gold embossing powder. I'm just going to use my Versamark ink and stamp that towards the bottom part of the vellum. Use my heat gun and melt that embossing powder, and that's the second part of the sentiment. Now the first part of the sentiment, I'm going to use the Mary die that coordinated with that stamp set, and I wanted to add a little bit of color, so I'm going in with some worn lipstick. And if you want to create an ombre look, a subtle ombre look, what I like to do is take a baby wipe and then just daub the top part of your sentiment, or the bottom part, whatever part you would like to be a little bit lighter. And I'm removing some of that oxide ink. And here, when I place it on a white panel, you'll be able to see kind of like an ombre look. But I love that effect. I think it just adds so much. Now here's where I lost my footage. I added the cinnamon sticks that I had cut out, and I wrapped them with some gold twine, wrapped the vellum around there, and then added some some droplets. And that was it for that card. I'm sorry about the footage that I lost. Now next, I'm using this die here from my stash. It creates a real pretty lace border. So I cut out 2 using the very vanilla cardstock, and then also a centerpiece for those to go on the edges with. Now I'm going to use this Christmas tree pattern paper. I'm just going to use what's left of this 6x6 sheet here. I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to just use my glue and attach my little lace edges to the left and to the right of that vanilla panel there. Lovely. Now once that's done, I'm going to add my Christmas tree panel right in the center there. Give it a little bit of color. There were lots of bells in that 12 by 12 sheet of pattern paper, so that's what we're going to use again. We're going to add 3 bells in the little cluster, and I wanted it hanging on some vanilla jute cord. So what I did is I threaded it through the back and then added another piece, creating a bow for each of those bells. And then I I'm going to loop the very top of that twine behind that panel. I just used my tape runner to secure the strings behind there, and then I'm going to go in with some foam tape just to make sure they're secure. So all my bells are hanging off that top part area. I'm going to place my panel on my card base, and then for my sentiment, there is a little cutout that said Jingle Bells. It had kind of rounded corners, so I'm going to kind of square them off a little bit more by trimming off the ends, and then just finishing it again with some vintage photo. And place that on there. Added a little bit of Wink of Stella, and boy, that it just made those bells shine, and they look so real. But that's it for that card. Now for card number 9, I'm sorry. There's a little snow globe, so we're going to doctor it up by adding some chunky glitter to the tree, and then to the little house on there, and then to the little snowbank underneath. I'm just using my Nouveau Deluxe adhesive and some chunky glitter here. With a snow pen and then my chunky glitter, they're my Christmas staples, and gold twine. Now I cut out a panel using the Santas there, and then this is a frame die. It's a scallop frame die, and I'm going to cut out a little frame here. We're going to create a shaker for this card. So this panel is going to be the back of my shaker, so I'm going to secure that to my Santa panel here, right in the center. Now in that 12 by 12 pattern paper, there was 3 little banners. So I'm going to use those 3 banners, and I'm going to place them on my panel here, just so I know where to stamp my sentiment. Now for my sentiment for this card, I used just one for my stash that says Happy Holidays. Using VersaFine ink, I'm just going to stamp it right below those 3 banners there. And then I can lift up that frame part, and then I'm going to add some tape, or using my tape runner, I'm going to add some tape all along the edges, and then I'm going to add my banners, because I want the banners to be under that scalloped edge. And then I did add a piece of acetate behind it, and once I have that done, just going to fluff up the ends a little bit. I did add some foam tape around my shaker there, and then taking my Nouveau Deluxe adhesive, I am going to add glue dots here and there, because I want some of that chunky glitter to be almost like snowflakes in the background. So I'm adding some chunky glitter there, right in the center, and I'm going to place my panel right over the top. I wanted the scene to be kind of like a snow scene. Now there's my little snow globe. I'm going to place it there, but I want to accent it with a little bit of this gold twine. I'm just going to tie a little bow to the right there, and then we're going to end up popping it up with some dimensional adhesive and put it right in that corner. You can see I got that glitter everywhere. So we have some shimmer on the inside of the shaker, and then shimmer on the outside with that little snow globe. I'm going to add some some foam tape behind this panel. So cute. Love that. I'm adding vintage photo again. I think I really like the vintage look that this gives. I'm just going to place that. This is a white card base. So I use white cardstock for all of these, for my shaker window and also for my card base. But that's it for that card. Love the way that turned out. Now for my final card. There wasn't very much left, but I wanted to use all the elements in that 12 by 12 pattern paper except for those 2 large ones. So I cut out a strip of this sentiment paper here. I don't have any more sentiments, so I thought this would work out really nice for my sentiments. So this panel is just slightly smaller than the white panel that I had cut out. And so I also cut out a smaller panel. Now this one I thought needed a little bit of texture, so I have this embossing folder for my stash. I'm just going to take the smaller rectangle and run that through and emboss this panel. This gives me a little bit of texture in my background. So there we have it. Love that look. Now that's going to go there. And then I have this die here. It's a C&CT stamp die, and I really like it. Has pine needles on it, so I'm going to use the green pattern paper, what was left of it, and I cut out my little pine needles. Now I wanted to do 2 layers, so I'm going to add the bottom layer to that rectangle, and then I'm going to pop up the second layer. Now I did run my stitched rectangle die around the bottom, so it all kind of flowed together. So the stitching goes all around the entire panel. But I love the way that look. Now I have the 2 elements I have left are the gold bow and this beautiful little lantern. So I'm going to pop the lantern up with some dimensional adhesive and place it right in the center. And then I'm going to add my bow right on top. Now I added some foam tape behind this panel, and I'm going to place it on the sentiment pattern paper here that I also popped up with some foam tape. So there's three layers. This foam tape is not very thick, so I didn't mind adding 3 layers. I'm going to add that one right in the center, and that's my 10th card. Oh, I did add a piece of this red pattern paper. I thought it needed a little bit of color behind there, so I fishtailed the ends, and I just placing that in the center. And then we're going to place that right in the center there. But those are my 10 cards. I hope you liked this tutorial. I thought it'd be something different, to kind of challenge myself to use elements in a pattern, 12 by 12 pattern paper. I'll leave links below to where you could get the 12 by 12 pattern paper and the paper pad if you're interested. And I wish you a fantastic day. Thank you so much for joining me for my Countdown to Christmas series. This is all the paper that I have left over, and I wanted to show you how I stored my paper. I just take all my extra elements, stick it inside the paper pad, and this is a quart size baggie. I mean, it's the cheapest ones that you can buy. I just trim off the top part of it, and I slip my 6x6 paper pad in there. That way all my bits and pieces don't fall out. But these were the 2 elements that were left, and so I'm just going to trim them down and stick them inside that baggie too. But nice for scrapbooking, I think those would be. I just want to do something different, and I hope you enjoyed it. Here's a quick look at all 10 cards that I made. And then again, also at the end, I have close-ups. If you want to stick around for that, let me know what you think. Leave a comment, give me a thumbs up. And again, if you want to see close-up pictures, visit my blog. I'll leave a link below too where you can check that out. I wish you a fantastic day. Lots of Christmas cards you can make with just one 12 by 12 pattern paper. I'll see you again real soon, guys. Bye-bye.